Welcome to today's show. For all of you watching on YouTube, please take a moment, hit that subscribe button, and click that bell for notifications. Today on Mr. Nashville Talks, a 3-time Grammy-winning country singer-songwriter, Grand Ole Opry star, and one of my favorite people, my friend, Linda Davis. Well, today I'm so excited because the guest today, she's a 3-time Grammy winner. She's an incredible songwriter, incredible singer, incredible person, and she's a friend of mine. And I'm so excited to have Linda Davis. Thank you so much for coming to be on my show.
Well, it's great to finally connect. I know we've had several correspondence about let's do this and when can we do it, and then different things slip in and get in the way, but we finally made it work.
Well, you're a busy lady, so that's a good thing.
and then there's the pandemic, which changed everybody's lives. But now we're sort of thawing out from the deep freeze, and it feels good.
So how was pandemic for you, though? Has it been just a nightmare, or did you turn it into something good? Or
well, I refuse to let the devil win when it comes to how the pandemic treated me and my family. Honestly, without work, that was a strange feeling because our livelihood just shut down. You know, we have so many friends, and I have so many friends at music at all levels. I mean, my daughter Hillary at the top of the world, they're shut down. They're, and everybody in between. So you can't take it personal because everybody shut down. Right. So that was, I guess it's kind of like your misery loves company. Yeah. But I also am so thankful that our family's health was strong, and my immediate family did not have. My son-in-law had the virus, and he is healthy, so he got over it after a few days. The rest of us has stayed healthy. And I'm so thankful for that, because we all know and have people in our families that weren't so lucky and are still dealing with it. But health-wise, we are very, very blessed. Mentally and, just emotionally, it's sort of roller coaster, but we just pray through it. And that's the thing about if you're a Christian and you are, thrown a curveball, you just rely on your faith that much more.
That's right.
And if I can say anything, it has drawn me to my Bible more and to sermons that I find online and different devotionals that just resonate with me. I look for that. I eat that up.
That kind of brings me to, do you remember when exactly in your life that God told you music is going to be your career, or that you want, that you had this gifting and you wanted it to be your career?
I can't remember when it didn't feel like that to me. Now I never, of course, as a kid, you don't know what you don't even think about, when I get to be 30 or 40, you think when I grow up, that's about as much of a future as you have a comprehension.
You're right.
But that's what I always said. I remember my 3rd grade teacher, Miss Hudson, whenever you start to school at the beginning of the year, she said, okay, boys and girls, you write down, and I would love to still have a copy of that. It's all gone, but how funny it would be. Write down what you want to be when you grow up, and who your mom and daddy are and all that stuff. So I remember just like it was yesterday, I want to be a country star.
And
I didn't know what all that meant, but the Grand Ole Opry is what that meant to me pretty much. And then of course Hee Haw and those shows that I would watch, the Porter Wagner show, and do you remember the Wilburn Brothers show?
Oh yeah.
And of course Dolly was on the Porter Wagner show, and Red Lynn was on the Grand Ole Opry, and I was just like, that's it. When I got finally, old enough to start kind of being more serious about it and more determined decisions and trying to find places to sing. As a young teenager, the Louisiana Hayride was just about an hour away from where I lived in East Texas, because we were right on the line.
Yeah.
So there was this uncle of a friend, and they called him Daddy Branch. And he lived in Louisiana. He was like, he might have been 100 years old. Seemed like it to me. He was 80. He was retired and by himself, and he didn't have much to do, I guess. So he heard, he met me, little Linda, and he made a cassette and recorded me while we were all sitting around in the yard at his children and grandchildren's house, my friends. I remember what song, and he put that cassette in an envelope and mailed it to the Louisiana Hayride. The next thing I know, Daddy Branch is calling me long distance on the phone and said, "You're going to be on the Louisiana Hayride."
Wow. Well,
So,
that's a God thing,
Oh my gosh, that's such a famous place.
Yeah.
The way they would talk about the Louisiana Hayride is that was the cradle of the stars. The next step was the Grand Ole Opry.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I just took them serious about that because I did my fortunately they let me come be a regular over there from time to time, and I played with amazing musicians, and they had a house band that half of them live in Nashville now, and became friends back then and are still my friends.
I love that.
And how long ago that was that you make relationships, and Larry, when you have friends, that music might bring us together,
right?
But our hearts and our, we stay together because you just love each other.
That's right. Yes.
And we're so blessed. It's like our little playground to meet people. And then you just kind of, and Christians, if you're a music person and you love Jesus, that's a real fun group to be in.
Yeah, it's family. It's like an extended family. Like everyone feels like they're cousins of somebody, or the closer ones are like brothers and sisters, and And
I think people who are not in our business, they hear or see on TV and movies or whatever, oh, it must be cutthroat. Oh, they're just so competitive. Oh, I bet. And of course, that TV show kind of made you think that. Well, here's the thing that separates the big boys, the professionals, from the amateurs. One of the things, whenever you are confident and you're at peace and at ease with where you are in your rise, or you're coming on back down, wherever you are in your career, there's no reason to be competitive to somebody else. There's room for everybody.
Yeah.
We all get there in a different way. The time that it takes us, we can root for each other.
That's right. That's right.
It doesn't take anything from me to root for everybody else.
Right. Exactly. I'm 100% with you. And that's kind of, to the most part, that is how our community is. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that may not like each other or whatever, but for the most part, I'd say a good 80-90% is on the positive side. And I think even on those smaller percents, they're just other people are involved, and
maybe you're not getting the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Exactly.
Decision. But that's life anyway. That happens in blood families. You can get on the wrong page. But whenever you sit together and you kind of, it's like, I want good for you. I want your kids to be good and healthy and happy, and because it's like when things do kind of get hard, you got people that will help you and go through it with you. But when you're on a mountain and you're celebrating a #1 record or a new grandbaby, whatever, you got a whole bunch of folks just cheering you on and congratulating you and being happy for you.
Yes. Now, Nashville, as we're talking about it and everything, there used to be a lot of cool spots that we don't have, like 20, 30 years ago, where there were singers at hotels and singers in like rooms with meals, the dinner theater type circuit. Now, I read that you were kind of discovered that way. Is that true, or?
Yes, it is. When I came to Nashville at 19, my youngest child, I've got 2 daughters, and Rylee Jean is my 20-year-old baby. Hillary is 35, and added up, that's 14 years. So when I first got to Nashville, I was so confident, Larry, and it was just a matter of days. I knew that when the Opry was going to fling their door open and put a star with my name on it on backstage. Well, it did not happen that way, and it's a good thing. It did, and I had a little interest in from a few folks that had good ideas and taught me a bunch of stuff. Phil Ball, who was an amazing guitar player, session player back in the day, he kind of had me under his wing. And if you're under his wing, then you're around some amazing people because he was very well respected. So I had the best of the best around me. And I knew that they were amazing. I probably just didn't know how amazing because I had not a lot of experience to compare it to.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I picked up on right away, because I'm an outgoing person and I'm not shy or bashful, you can probably tell, but I just watched everybody, the other musicians and background singers and engineers, how much they had fun together.
Yeah.
We were talking about it just a second ago. It's like there's this camaraderie that I want to be a part of, not just on stage, because that's with your fans, your audience, but backstage, on stage, those are just your people. And I picked up on that right away. So, and they taught me little things here and there, and I would be around really good songwriters and I'd try to write a little bit, and then I'd hear theirs. It's like, ooh, I got a lot of work to do. So I became a student. So I started doing, little studio vocal stuff, demos. I got a job at one of those piano bars that you were talking about in a hotel, and that is when one of the people that came in one night, I didn't recognize him because I'm still trying to figure out who's who, what part they play. But the artist, their pictures on the album cover. So that's who I'm looking for. Waylon, I'm looking for Johnny Rodriguez, and all these people.
Yeah.
George Jones, Statler Brothers. I'm looking for them. But what I've had to realize is who produces them.
Yeah.
Who manages them.
Right.
Who writes their songs if they don't write their own? And who plays on their recording sessions and who sings background? I'm learning so much because there's so many facets that makes Johnny Rodriguez. And who made George Jones, so all this is just coming at me 100 miles an hour, and I'm trying to take it in and grow up and figure life out by myself.
Right.
But I got this piano bar job. It was a new hotel, and it was a nice place. So it wasn't one of those bars that you have to dodge beer bottles, and fights didn't break out. So you hear all those stories. I wasn't too good for that, but I just didn't have to go down that road, So one night, it was not very crowded at all, which was not uncommon. There was a hotter spot down the hallway, which the dance crowd. Mine was the laid back crowd. So one night there was this handsome man with white, perfect hair, and he sat at a little table not too far from my piano. And I remember playing some of my songs, and I looked at him and, Larry, you can just tell when somebody's somebody.
Yes. Exactly.
And I thought he's somebody, but I didn't know who he was. So I thought, let me pull out some of my really special songs that I really love and think I do good. So your friend and mine, Melba Moore, did a song called Misty Blue. And Billy Joe Spears also did it because her version and words was in my country song roundup book, which is where I learned the words.
Yeah.
So I learned Misty Blue, and I thought, I don't do that. And I kind of had my own little version of, so I did Misty Blue, the best I thought I could. And I got done, and I looked over, and he listened with his eyes closed. That made me think he was somebody too, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I got done. I looked over at him, and he said, I wrote that.
Isn't that amazing?
Okay, my knee started knocking under the piano.
Yeah.
His name was Bob Montgomery.
Yeah.
And he's not on the outside of the records. He's on the inside with his credit of having produced, having written songs. Now, he used to work with Buddy Holly back in the early days.
Wow.
Because they grew up out there in Texas. But I didn't know that part. I just knew he wrote Misty Blue. And they said, yeah, I produced Janie Fricke, and oh my. So I did It Ain't Easy Being Easy, no. You know, so I got bold then, started doing songs he recognized. But anyway, Bob Montgomery, that's a long story to get to this. He started bringing people in the Sheraton Music City where that piano bar was, and bringing people in there to hear me.
That's awesome.
People that went on to put a good word in for me here or there, and he helped me get a record deal at CBS Epic, and Herb Woolsey had George Strait managed, and he started managing. You know, it's like if you are endeared by some people that want to help you and have friends that can help, it just kind of starts. So my break came when people like him noticed that I had something that they might could work with.
Right.
And I continued to do demos because I didn't have, you know, my record deal wasn't making us a living yet, but doing demos for different songwriters got people around town familiar with my voice.
Yeah.
Artists who heard these demos, like Reba. So that connection came because she kept getting demo songs because people wanted her to record their songs, and Linda Davis was singing the demo. And the writers thought, well, if Linda sings it, she kind of does some stuff with her voice, sort of like Reba, so maybe Reba can hear herself.
Yeah.
Then Reba started cutting some of those songs. So I got called a lot more because, we got to get Linda, she might get help us get a Reba cut or whatever. And see, all the while, I get paid a little bit. I sing, keeping my voice up. I do harmony with myself, keeping that chop up. And people like Reba sending word back that they liked my voice. And I mean, that's just a fun time that feels validated with what you're doing. And I was a little part because I sung the song for the songwriter that Reba then cut and sold millions. I got to be a little part of their success and of Reba's success.
Exactly.
And so if I would have just had an attitude of I'm only going to sing if it's Linda Davis's record.
Yeah.
If I'd have been stuck on that, as opposed to coming on the journey and the path that was right for me, because God lined it all out, and I somehow or another just managed to figure it out and get lucky. I'd have missed so much. I'd have missed so many friendships and opportunities that I still to this day, I'm so thankful for.
Well, I remember in an interview that Reba had given, she said, you know, I kept getting these demos and I loved this singer. She became my favorite singer. And so, and is that what brought you into her touring company as well? Because you opened shows for her at first, right?
I was actually, you want to hear this story? I don't know how much time you got. So I was actually still on the little record label that Bob Montgomery helped me get. Mm-hmm. I was still managed by Herb Woolsey. And I never left the Sheraton Music City because there wasn't quite enough traction with radio success or bookings that I could afford to leave my little job.
Right.
So I didn't. And nobody pushed me to, because if you can avoid the pressure of having to make some decisions that are out of desperation.
Yes. Yeah.
If you don't approach things out of desperation, normally you can make a whole lot better long-term smart decision. So by keeping that little job, and we just had Hillary. I was pregnant at that hotel, because I was there 7 years, Larry.
Wow.
It wasn't just an overnight thing,
Right.
So I was at that hotel. So after I did have a few shows with George Strait. That's, Irv was managing him. So I got a few opening slots with him, which was amazing. Then I'd go back to my little hotel job. I'm just out with George in Houston, and then I come back to my little hotel. So that, while on one of those shows that I got to do, I was in Missouri at the State Fair. Mm-hmm. And Reba was at the big stage that night. I was under the tent. I opened for the armadillo races. And
you go where the audience is, right?
The check cleared and everything. But Norval, Reba's husband and manager at the time, came over and stood and watched and listened to me. And afterwards, he approached me and said, well, I'm Norval. I'm Reba's husband. I'm her manager. She would love for you to come backstage tonight after a show. Come to the show and then come backstage. And she loves your voice. We love your voice. I have a management company that I'm signing artists, starting to sign artists, and we'd like to talk to you about that when we get back to Nashville. So went to the show, blown away, loved it. And got back to Nashville a few days. We had our talk. Lang, my husband, and I, we do all this together, not as far as decisions, at the time.
Yeah.
And he was still working out at the Nashville network, paying our bills, helping pay, keep everything afloat as an associate producer for some shows. But anyway, he's a great singer too. But so we talked, and Norval wanted to manage me. So basically, Reba started managing me. With Norval's, day-to-day. Well, then Norval and Reba said, would y'all both come and be in my new band? So we got to go out with her as a husband and wife.
Makes it a lot better.
We didn't have to miss each other. However, Hillary couldn't go.
Yeah.
When you're a side person, you can't take your kids.
Right.
If you're the artist and you have room, you do, but not when you're a side person.
Right.
So we understood that when we took the job. We knew that. Well, my father and mother-in-law moved from South Carolina to Nashville.
Wow.
To stay with Hillary while we began our next level of our professional career.
That's a God thing.
We couldn't have really done it without them. And shortly after we began singing backup for her, Lang plays guitar and sings too. Then she finds the song, Does He Love You?
Wow.
Then that becomes its own thing.
Yeah.
Which helps me get a new record deal with all that exposure. And then I'm on tour with her. So I do a lot she features me, which comes back to the part where successful people help each other. How blessed.
Little puzzle pieces, to the whole picture. Yes.
Yes. And I'm so thankful.
And you win the Grammy. I mean,
did you know that story?
No, I didn't.
A lot of people think, oh, y'all must have had so much fun when you walked up there and got that Grammy. Well, that's not what happened at all. We got nominated and were blown away that we got nominated. But that same year, Winona and Clint Black had a beautiful duet together, and it got nominated.
Yes.
They actually went out there to sing their song for the award show. We thought they're going to win. They're out there doing. We were on tour, and there were just a couple of days between we got home and we had to wash all our clothes to go out again. So we didn't even go. We were in Nashville. I was
Bless
at
your
her
heart.
house. Visualize this. She's at her house in Lebanon. She in Norval. They're watching it on TV.
Yeah.
I'm at my little house on Denver Drive, and me and Lane, Hillary's running around somewhere. Sandy Spica, who did all of Reba's clothes, I mean, those beautiful gowns, she did a bunch of Taylor Swift stuff. You look her up, she's amazing.
Yeah.
But she was at my house putting a button on some costume or, helping me do something before we had to go again. She brought over Baskin Robbins ice cream. That was so nice of her. And we were eating the little ice cream and sewing buttons or whatever and watching the awards, and they called our name. We never been so shocked. And I think Reba called me before I could get on the telephone and call her. It's like, what just happened? So we weren't there. We didn't have to dress up and do anything.
Wow. But well, it's still, you got it. So that's at least a good thing.
They mailed it to us, so we know it's legitimate.
Kenny, a huge portion of his career, he's always had these great duets, so he needs a female on the road with him. And then comes you, and how did that connection happen? Well,
back in the 90s, during this, I was with Reba still, and we were off for a week. And Kenny was in Branson, and whoever his female artist was had to cancel, who was going to sing with him. So his booking called Narvel and said, is Linda available? Yeah, she is. So I got to be, his duet partner for a week in Branson.
Well, and Kenny, especially Kenny, but Reba as well, they have like a very diverse audience. It's not just the typical country music audience. So that even educates you more.
Oh,
how you put the show together. And
the part that dawned on me, and this is the part I try to impart into my students. Your songs, they come to expect you're going to sing this song and that song. You might throw them a new song. So they know that they're going to get your music.
Yes.
And that is a lot of the reason they come to the first show or two.
Right.
But what you do and say and share in between the songs,
right,
is why they keep coming.
Another great person that kind of made a great connection with you is Ricky Skaggs, where you could do this incredible Christian album and you win 2 more Grammys. But how did the album come about? And I mean, obviously, I know you want to sing with your family, of course, so that's probably a huge part of it. But what was what set it off for you to want to do that album together? And how did Ricky get involved, and all of that?
So back in 2011, my father-in-law was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh.
And in June-ish. And so for 5 months he fought it and, had his attitude was so, at first there was a lot of fear. People watching this probably every person watching this has had cancer in your family or your close friends.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, totally.
And so when my father-in-law took all that information in and began the fight and the chemo and all that, like always, our family, we would be comforted by music.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was ours because we sing, And
right.
We'd already made a little family gospel CD to give out at Christmas with about 6 songs on it when Rylee Jean was little and Hillary was quite young. So we pulled that out. And, my father-in-law made copies, bootleg copies. He'd give, he'd make copies and give away of that older CD.
Yeah.
And so he had such a fondness for, his kids and his grandkids and loved our talents, and he'd share it with the world.
Yeah.
He drove a van out at the hotel out there by Opryland and took people to and from the airport. And it had a CD player in it or a cassette player. When he closed that door and they were in that van and they couldn't leave. Hey, sugar, my son, my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law, they said, tell me what you think. So he'd play. They couldn't go anywhere. So he was kind of like his own little show.
Yeah.
Bragging on us. He died 11/11/11.
Oh, wow.
And so after a little bit, Miss Rose stayed here, of course, and we just gathered around and tried to keep life going without my father-in-law. Lane has a sister who's still in South Carolina, and so, she'd come as often as she could. But so after Lane said it was 3 years before he could really go back and read those because it was just so raw. But as he was getting back into those Caring Bridge messages of hope and of encouragement, and there were about 400 family and friends who would write. He said, I felt so convicted in my spirit that we needed to do something for those people. So he told me about it, and he called Hillary. He said, I would like to go in our little home studio. We got those original gospel songs, but let's write, let's do 5 or 6 more if you get permission, because, she's got a record label. We're not going to sell them. We're just going to give them to these people, but make sure time-wise and that you're comfortable with this. And she tells her daddy, she said, I feel like we need to do this, but I don't want to just do it in the studio or downstairs at your house. I want my team, and I want us to do this in a way that a lot of people can have a chance to hear this and to be healed by our music or by however God wants to use it. Okay, well, we're friends with Ricky, and we love Ricky. I don't know necessarily this is going to be a bluegrass record, but he does a lot of stuff that's not bluegrass. So don't put him in a box.
Right.
But he's so good. He's Mr. Ears.
Yes.
He can hear. And then we started writing songs. Hillary started writing songs. We started finding songs in Nashville from different friends and writers. And then Hillary, you may remember, in the midst of all of that, putting that record together, she and Chris became pregnant.
Right.
And she had a miscarriage. And she wrote the song Thy Will.
Mm.
And that was a healing song for her. And it must have connected with a lot of people out. But that song, Thy Will, evoked so much honesty and raw, true stories that it was just God using it.
Yes.
Using a bad, sad situation for my daughter and our family, my son-in-law, but used it for good, just like he says he will.
God took something bad and made it for good. And that's what music does for so many people.
What God does.
Yes. God through music. And, and it's Dolly Parton said one time to my little boy, my youngest son, she was talking to him and she said, music is the language of the soul. And what you all were able to do with that album, it just touched a lot of people. I know it touched me. And you sent me the song that you did of Dottie's before it was out. And that blessed me so much. It meant a lot to me, first of all, that you thought enough to share it with me before you did other, the full release. How did you come about choosing that song too, of Dottie's, by the way? Some
standards, some hymns. And I feel like Sheltered in the Arms of God is a hymn.
Yeah, it's in a lot of hymn books. So
it's a new hymn because it was written in this century. But when I was growing up, that song, a bunch of the older ladies in the church and different people that I knew from my little community that I thought sang good, that was one that a lot of people did for a special. We called them special, not a solo, but a special. So I learned it as a little girl and sang it all my life. And then, of course, getting to Nashville and meeting Dottie and feeling like she was a family friend. My offering, Hillary did a lot of the songs, the lead All of us did harmony with her on every song, but that was the one that I picked to do. Just felt like the Lord or the Holy Spirit was just in that space, and we didn't need to look for another one. That was it. And I just hope that Dottie, is smiling. I think she is.
Oh yeah.
We're just so thankful that we still get to spread that message. There's just something about that lyric that just calms. I remember flying overseas, Larry, with Kenny Rogers and you're on an airplane a long time, and turbulence, and it's like your mind, if you're not careful, our little minds can just close the walls in. We had that record. I put it on, put my headphones on, and I just let that song speak to me and let my whole being just get wrapped up in those words. I feel that way about another project that I think we're going to talk about in a second, because there is just a peace that can come over you.
Yes. And you brought that up, and I'm so glad you did, because that's what I was going to ask next. We got to work on a project together, and your track is extra special because, well, for several reasons. It's also the title of the album, so you have the kind of the star of the album spot, and you have a great singing partner with Marty Rabin.
Oh my gosh.
Tell me a little bit about what you think about the song. And
well, first of all, thank you for including me in this Dottie tribute record. It is her work and her words and her songs, and you have some amazing talent that it's on this record. And for you to think of me and to include me is the sweetest and the most amazing blessing. To pair me then, because you did not know this, because one of my bucket lists was to sing with Marty Rabin.
Really?
For years, I have loved him from afar and up close and personal. To sing with him has been for a long time, like one day I'm going to sing with him. And you made that happen. I didn't have to beg you. I didn't have to pay you. You just had a thought, let's get Linda and Marty to do. And I'm so thankful, because I feel like our voices do go together very well. And this song touched through me you probably know Dottie's story of how she wrote it, where she was in life. I don't know that. I don't remember if you told me that, but I always loved it.
Yeah.
And to pair me with Marty for that song and the lyrics to that song, it is my heart. It is, because I've been talking about it for the last little bit. It's like, if there's anything that I can do through Jesus and through the Holy Spirit to help somebody else know him, help somebody to where they recognize their family, is something that you need to treasure. And relationships, don't throw them away, but to be God's hands and feet down here. And I'm so humbled. And that song talks.
I think it's amazing that you're on the project, and you were the first person that we actually, the whole thing was based around that song and getting the right people for that song. That's the honest truth. I'm not just saying that because you're here. And you were the very first. I mean, you have a lot of ideas, but this was the cornerstone, like you were talking about with Fanny Crosby and Blessed Assurance. This was the cornerstone that we built around that. What's going to be next for Linda Davis, or for the Scott family, or is there more Scott family recordings do you think that'll happen? And I know we definitely need to hear some Linda Davis recordings too, and you're singing on the Opry a lot now. And
let me tell you another, my daughter was asked to be a member of the opera. So it just doesn't get any better than when your kids are living their dream and living mine.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's more songs for me to write, and there are a whole lot more performances and shows for me to put on.
I want to thank you and thank Lang for letting you come and, you know, get away from him for a minute to come spend some time with me. And I've always loved you. You've always been so good to me. This
is the next best way to be together than actually in the room, I guess, for right now.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
That's right.
It. And time can slip away if we're not careful, but let's not let that much go again. And I'm glad that I finally got to be on your show and talk to you and meet your fans this way, and that the people who follow your show and your career. And I'm tickled that we got this time together.
Me too. Thank you so much. Subscribe to our mailing list and you could win a CD or DVD project by today's featured artist. To enter, please go to www.mrnashvilletalks.com and enter your email address. While there, take a look around, browse through our music store. Our show is totally funded by viewer support. Every t-shirt or music purchase from our store helps bring us new shows for you.